Blinded by Wealth, Part 3. "You are a beautiful young woman," he said, his eyes lingering on her face. Abena felt a chill run down her spine. She forced a polite smile, hoping he would just buy whatever he needed and leave. "Thank you, sir. Do you want to buy something?" she asked, her voice sounding more distant than she intended. The man didn't seem to be in a hurry. He leaned forward, his gaze never leaving hers. "More than something," he said smoothly. "I want to know you." His words sent a shiver through Abena. She didn't know who this man was, but there was something about him that made her uneasy. His eyes was too intense, his smile too knowing. Abena quickly finished the sales, handing him his goods and avoiding his gaze. "Thank you," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Goodbye, sir." Without waiting for a response, she turned away, leaving the man to stand there, watching her as she walked away. That evening, as Abena sat with her mother, she couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled in her chest. "Mama," she began hesitantly, "there was a man at the market today. He was strange. He kept saying things that made me uncomfortable." Her mother looked up from her work, concern flashing across her face. "Did he say his name?" she asked softly. "No," Abena replied, her voice trembling slightly, "but something about him felt wrong. I don't know what it was, but I didn't like the way he looked at me." Her mother's face grew with concern, and she sat her down. "Be careful, Abena. Some men don't take no for an answer." Abena nodded, brushing off the worry in her mother's voice. She didn't want to think about it, but deep down she knew that something about that man had unsettled her. What she didn't know was that this man, Mr. Aqua, would soon change her life in ways she couldn't imagine. Days after their first encounter, Mr. Aqua began to visit the market regularly. Each time Abena set up her store, she would notice him standing a distance away, watching her with that same unsettling gaze. His visits were always timed perfectly, as though he knew when she would be there. With a smooth and charming smile, he would approach her and start a conversation. "Abena," he would say, his voice dripping with confidence, "you are too beautiful to be working so hard. Why don't you come with me? I can offer you a life of comfort, a life without worry." His words felt like honey, sweet yet hollow. Abena's discomfort grew with each passing day, but she forced herself to remain polite. "I am not interested, sir," she would reply firmly, trying to stay composed, despite the unease building inside her. But he wouldn't relent. "You don't understand, Abena," he insisted one day. "You have so much potential. Let me help you realize it." As the days turned into weeks, Mr. Aqua's visits became even more frequent. He bought from her store almost every day, each time showering her with exaggerated compliments. "Such grace, such beauty," he would say, as if his words would make her forget her reality. He spoke of the life he could offer her, one of luxury and ease, far removed from the hardship she had known. Abena began to hate his presence, but it was impossible to avoid him. Everywhere she went, there he was, always offering her the same empty promises. "Your life could change in an instant if you just let me in," he would whisper, his voice low, almost seductive. Each time he spoke, Abena felt a knot of unease tighten in her stomach. Despite her growing fear, Abena's resistance was firm. "I have my own dreams," she would say, her voice trembling slightly, despite her best efforts to sound confident. "Please stop following me." But Mr. Aqua would simply smile, a knowing look in his eyes. He wasn't listening to her words. He was only interested in getting what he wanted. With each visit, his persistence worn down on her defense. And though she refused to admit it, she could feel the pressure building inside her. It wasn't just him anymore. It was her family, the people around her, all pushing her in a direction she wasn't ready to go to. One afternoon, as Abena hurried home after another stressful day at the market, she noticed a shadowy figure lingering in the distance. Her heart skipped a beat as she realized it was Mr. Aqua. He had been following her. She quickened her pace, hoping he hadn't noticed her, but as she rounded a corner and approached her gate, there he was, standing in front of her house, waiting for her. Abena, he called out, smoothly, his voice as calm as ever. I didn't mean to scare you. I simply wanted to talk. Abena stopped in her tracks, her heart pounding in her chest. I don't want to talk to you, she said, her voice sharp with anger and fear. Please leave me alone. But Mr. Aqua was unfazed. He walked towards her house, ignoring her protests as if they didn't matter. I will just speak with your parents then, he said, his voice smooth and calculated. I am sure they would want to hear about the life I can offer you. After all, we are all just trying to make things better for you, aren't we? Mr. Aqua arrived at Abena's house uninvited, his presence looming like a dark cloud over their small home. Her mother, though hesitant, welcomed him with the politeness expected of a good host. Though Abena could see the curiosity in her eyes, Mr. Aqua wasted no time. I have been watching your daughter for some time now, he said to her mother, his tone smooth and confident, and I believe I can offer her a future no one else in this village can. I have money, a home, and influence. If she marries me, she will never have to work a day again. His words hung in the air, each one striking deeper into Abena's heart like a stone. Her father, who had been bedridden for months, raised his head slightly at the mention of wealth. Though weak, his interest was piqued. What do you want from us? He asked, his voice faint but sharp. Mr. Aqua's smile widened, as if he had been waiting for this moment. I just want her, he replied. In return, I will make sure your family is well taken care of. I will give you a house, a land, and all the comforts that comes with marrying into a family like mine. Abena's heart sank as she listened. She had never seen her parents so desperate, so willing to sell her future for the promise of a better life. After that first meeting, Mr. Aqua's visit didn't stop. He came again and again, each time offering more money, more luxury, more promise of a life Abena never wanted. The fear in her chest grew with every word he spoke. She knew what he was offering, but it didn't feel like a gift. It felt like a trap. Abena, her mother said one evening, her voice softer than usual, this man can give you everything. You will never have to struggle again. Don't you want that? Abena shook her head, the weight of her mother's words crushing her. I don't want his life, she whispered, her voice barely hearable. I don't want his wealth. Her mother sighed heavily, the lines of worry on her face deepening. But we need it, Abena, she replied. Look at your father. We are struggling. This might be our only chance. Her words were a plead, a desperate cry for help. Abena wanted to scream, to tell her mother that she wasn't just a pawn to be traded for a better life. I am not just a commodity to be sold, Abena said, her voice shaking with anger and pain. The words tasted bitter, but they were the only ones she had left. But her mother only shook her head, her eyes full of sorrow. You don't understand, Abena. This isn't just about you. It is about all of us. Can't you see? We are